Hello and welcome to this week's crypto update. So what's been happening in the market and what can we expect moving forward? Well, as per usual, to start now, 10 weeks in a row, we have MicroStrategy once again have bought more Bitcoin. The numbers are much smaller than they have been, but they're still really big buys. In this case, 243 million worth of Bitcoin. They now have 450,000 Bitcoin. The Nasdaq listed healthcare tech firm Semler Scientific, who have been purchasing Bitcoin on a regular basis, a little bit like MicroStrategy, but obviously at smaller amounts, have just added another 23.3 million worth of Bitcoin to their books. It's a continuous buying strategy with these. On top of that, we see that Meta shareholders are now urging the company to allocate a portion of its 72 billion in cash towards Bitcoin, stating that having that cash in place is being undermined by the continuous printing of money. And so they believe that they should consider putting some of these funds into Bitcoin. Likewise, Amazon already have a proposal in place and it's scheduled to be discussed at the April 2025 annual meeting. And we know Microsoft already had a discussion on this. So we have the biggest companies with the most cash and reserves in the world seriously considering putting the likes of Bitcoin on their reserves. So this is just extraordinary bullish as we move forward into 2025 from these companies. On top of that, we've seen Italian's largest bank, Intesa, buy Bitcoin for 1 million as a test. That would suggest, if they're happy with how it goes, that there'll be much more to come after that. But again, one of the biggest banks in Europe. Also, we see the ETFs are back in business. So last week's digital asset fund saw net inflows of 48 million. Now, about $1 billion of that came in the first couple of days. There was significant outflows after that, but net positive, and they are back. So what we're seeing here is what we've seen before. We've seen the likes of MicroStrategy buying up and other companies buying Bitcoin, and the ETFs doing the same. The last time we saw them doing that, it brought Bitcoin from 60,000 up to 108,000. At the moment, we're seeing the opposite, but what you can see here is the ETFs inflows are massively diminished from what they were. Likewise with these other companies. So while they're buying, it's at a much smaller rate. So can they up their ante? Can they start buying more and drive the overall Bitcoin market up more? Will others come into the marketplace and start to buy up some of these cryptos? I think in the longer term, the answer for me is absolutely yes. But in the short term, where does it go from here? Well, let's see. We also see that the monthly crypto trading on centralized exchanges hits all-time highs in last December. This would suggest retail are coming back into the market. And again, that's hugely positive for the overall space and the potential for crypto moving forward throughout the year. And of course, we have Trump. We're only a matter of days away now from his inauguration. Trump could sign crypto-related executive orders on his first day in office, and it has been stated that is the plan. Bitcoin has rallied to 94. It's gone well up over that now, about 102, though making a pullback at the moment. But it moves forward because what has been put out publicly, Donald Trump plans to issue pro-crypto executive orders on his first day as president. The orders are expected to address crypto banking access and overturn the SEC's controversial SAB 121 regulations, which has restricted banks from offering crypto custody services. The news sparked a market rally with Bitcoin recovering from a 2-month low. The one thing I will say about all of this is this. A couple of days ago, if you were listening to the overall sentiment in the market, you would expect that you should sell all your crypto and forget about it. The sentiment was really low. It was that the whole market's going to pull back hugely. Things were in a very negative space. The jobs market was really strong. Inflation was expected to continue going up higher. And with those two things in place, then it was highly unlikely that we would see any rate reductions from the Fed, and the market reacted to that and pulled back. And it was a really negative sentiment. Literally a day or two later, the inflation came in slightly lower. Now, it's still rising. It's at 2.9%. The expected was 3%, but the overall rate has increased. And so things are still getting dearer. But yet the market took this as being hugely positive, and that now it would open the door, as they would see it, that the Fed could actually start cutting rates again. But rate cutting generally is into a market where jobs are really poor and inflation is very low. The inflation is still 50% higher than they actually wanted, their target figure, and jobs market is really strong. That's not normally a market where you reduce rates. So I think the market has reacted, has seen it as being very positive. Will that remain in place? I still believe there's pullbacks to happen, even though the market has now gone extremely bullish. Where to from here? Well, let's look at this. This is a chart we've looked at on a number of occasions, but let's see what this is. So it's the global M2 money supply, so the amount of liquidity in the marketplace, and Bitcoin and its reaction. So the white line is the global money supply, but it's 12 weeks ahead of Bitcoin. So the global money supply increased, and 12 weeks later, Bitcoin followed. But when you overlay them with a 12-week delay, it follows it almost exactly. So the M2 money supply peaked, Bitcoin followed it almost exactly. Since then, the money supply over the last 12 weeks has gone down. And the question is, will Bitcoin continue to follow it? In other words, will there be a big pullback at this point in time? If it continues this relationship, then the answer to that would be yes. Will it continue that relationship? And is the global money supply going to continue going down further? Well, if we look back in history, this is August 2016 to January 2018. At this point in time here, we can see, if you look in this point, towards the end of it, you can see that, so what are these two? So first of all, the white line was the global supply back then, and the green is following it almost identically. And so at the moment, that green has gone down, and that is where the money supply is right now. And will Bitcoin follow it down? But if it's to follow what happened a number of years ago, then the money supply will increase dramatically over the next number of months, right through 25 and into 2026. If that were to happen and Bitcoin is to continue following it, while it might have a pullback now, it will have a really strong year thereafter. So if you were to follow that through and believe that that would all go as history has done before, well, then we would expect to see a significant pullback in Bitcoin over the next few weeks. And after that, again, follow that money supply, assuming the money supply follows what it did a number of years ago. So if the money supply follows what the money supply did 4 or 5 years ago, and Bitcoin continues to follow the money supply, we'd expect to see a significant pullback and then absolutely off to the races from there. Lastly, let's look at another chart. This chart is the behavior of Bitcoin throughout the halvings. So you can see here, for example, the blue line was the last bull run. You can see that sort of double top. And then you've got the green and yellow with the previous bull runs. But the red-orange line that's in here is where we are so far. And if it was to follow any of the 3 previous cycles in magnitude, then Bitcoin would go over 200,000 in any one of these 3 previous ones. Some have gone to what would be the equivalent of 220, 230, 240, and one of them would even bring Bitcoin up to touch off 300,000. Will those happen? Who knows? But what we're looking at is what has happened in history and what potentially can happen here again. So for me, the overall context here is, number one, have an idea of what you plan to do yourself. If you were to go by market sentiment on a daily basis, one day you'll be selling all your crypto and getting out, and 2 days later you'll be selling your house and putting everything into crypto. The market sentiment is shifting so much on a daily basis. And if you're going to follow that, you're going to be trading in and out of projects, and probably overall start to lose money along the way, or find it very difficult to at least maintain your money or make money. Whereas if you buy into projects with conviction, whether the market goes up a day or down a day, if you believe in the overall market and the market trend, then you just buy the projects that you've done your research on, that you believe in, and you let the market do its job over time. Don't get shaken out, and be prepared and have a plan as how you're going to take profits along the way. So on that, I would say having a plan is probably the most important thing you can do, and stick with it. Make sure the things you're buying into you have absolute conviction in, because when you see them coming back, 10, 15, 20% in a day or two, you might get shaken out, sell, and end up buying back in higher. And that is not a good way of making money. There was plenty of projects in the last couple of days dropped by 50%. If you were in those and they came back 50%, would you hold? If you believe in the overall marketplace and you've done the research on that project, then probably yes, and you're in line to make good money. So last thing I want to do is have a quick look at the chart. Here's the Bitcoin chart. So this is the, again, each bar here is 4 hours. You can see the general trend. You can see it's moved here from, hit sort of just over 89,000. At this stage, the market was gone really bearish, and a massive pullbacks expected. And all of a sudden it started ticking up because of the inflation rates coming in slightly lower than expected, but still quite high. If you look at the daily, where of course each bar is 1 day, you can see, of course, we really went up really high very quickly. There was huge buying pressure coming in from the likes of MicroStrategy, other companies, and of course the ETFs. That whittled off, and we've seen that sort of general downward trend. Again, it's all bullish right now, but again, if I go back into the 4 hour, you'll see that in my view, we've hit a high up here. We've come down to a low. We've gone to a lower high, a lower low, and now it appears to be putting in another lower high. That is a general downward trend. And so while the market has turned completely bullish all of a sudden, it's my expectation that we could see this significant pullback yet. If I go back out to the daily, you'll see the 21-day moving average, which is this sort of pinky line. You know, it's struggled with trying to stay above that. It's come below. It's managed to get back up. It's dropped off again. It's managed to get back up where it is right now. Will it drop off again? If it continues doing that, eventually it'll come back down to the next line of resistance, which is this 100-day moving average. That would also tie into, you know, a good line of resistance there, but that would bring us back down to that sort of 88,000, maybe down as far as 85. And of course, if we were to break that, there's a big fall down to the start of the next line, which is the 200-day moving average and the previous all-time highs of around 74,000. Am I saying that's going to happen? No, I'm not saying there's anything guaranteed. Of course, no one knows which direction the market's going to go, but I certainly would be prepared for this to happen, and make sure that you're in projects that you have conviction in. And if you're in a position and it happens to do that, maybe it might give you a possibility of dollar cost averaging in or getting into some projects that you might not be in yet. There's a huge amount of opportunity out there, but it ultimately comes down to this. Are you bullish overall long term? And if you are, have you done the research on the projects that you're invested in? And if you've done that, then if you're positioned well in those, you have conviction in those and the overall market, well, then the market pulling back in between shouldn't cause you any concern. With that, hopefully you found that useful, and we'll talk to you all next week.